My son deliberately gave me the wrong wedding date so I'd miss his ceremony. I'm Billy I. Anderson, 68 years old, and I thought I'd raised him better than this. What Danny didn't know was that his embarrassing old dad had been quietly building something for 37 years. Something worth $3.2 billion. Something that could destroy his perfect new life with a single phone call. But first, he had the nerve to ask for his wedding gift, a check I'd already written for $1 million. So I tore it up, smiling, right there at his Four Seasons reception, in front of 200 guests. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from, because what happened next changed everything between us forever. Sometimes the people who underestimate you the most are the ones who should know better. And sometimes, quiet revenge is the loudest statement you can make. Danny's been ashamed of me for years. I knew it, but I accepted it. At tech conferences, he'd introduce me as retired. Never mentioned what I did before. Never said I fixed computers, just retired. Like I was some burden he had to explain. "This is my dad, he's retired," he'd say to investors. Then he'd quickly change the subject. The truth is, I've been sending Danny $4,800 every month for 32 years, never missed a payment. Started when he was in college at Stanford, continued through graduate school. Kept going when he moved to Palo Alto and started his company. $4,800 every month. Do the math. That's over $1.5 million. He never asked where it came from. Never questioned why his poor old dad could afford to send that much. He just took it and assumed I was struggling to make ends meet. Danny lives in a $2.1 million house in Palo Alto. Drives a Tesla Model S that cost $89,000. His startup raised $2.3 million last year. He thinks he's self-made. But here's what really bothered me. 2 months ago, Danny was showing his fiancée around my little apartment. I heard her whisper, "This is where you grew up?" "Unfortunately, yes," Danny said. Dad never really made anything of himself. I was in the kitchen, heard every word. His fiancée, Rebecca, comes from money. Her father owns 3 hotels in San Francisco. Her mother sits on charity boards. They have a house in the Hamptons and another in Napa Valley. Rebecca's been polite to me, but distant. Like she's trying to figure out how someone like Danny came from someone like me. At family dinners, Danny would steer conversations away from my work. If someone asked what I did, he'd say, "Dad helps people with computer problems." Never "Dad runs a computer repair business." Always downplayed it. The worst part was last month at Rebecca's family dinner. Her father asked about my background. "Billy does some computer work around the neighborhood," Danny said. "Nothing too complicated. Just helps seniors with basic stuff." I sat there quietly, ate my dinner, said nothing. But I noticed things. The way Rebecca's parents exchanged glances. The way the conversation moved quickly to other topics. The way they all assumed I had nothing valuable to contribute. Danny's startup is called TechFlow Solutions. They make software for inventory management. It's a decent idea, but nothing revolutionary. The company has 12 employees and burns through cash fast. Every month when I send that $4,800, Danny deposits it without comment. No thank you. No acknowledgement. Just takes it and moves on. I started wondering what would happen if I stopped sending it. Would his company survive? Could he make his mortgage payments? Would he still be able to afford that Tesla? But I kept sending it because I love my son, even if he's ashamed of me. 3 weeks ago, Danny announced his engagement officially. Posted it on LinkedIn with a long story about building something from nothing and creating his own path. No mention of family, no mention of support. Just him, self-made and proud. The engagement party was at Rebecca's parents' house in Pacific Heights. 40 people, all successful, all wealthy, all the kind of people Danny wants to be around. I wore my best shirt and tie, arrived exactly on time. Danny introduced me to exactly 3 people all night, each time as my dad with no other details. Each time he quickly moved the conversation elsewhere. I spent most of the evening standing alone by the appetizer table, listening to conversations about IPOs and venture capital and real estate investments. Nobody talked to me. I was invisible. At one point, I overheard Danny talking to Rebecca's father about his business plans. "The key is staying lean," Danny said. "I've learned to bootstrap everything, keep expenses low, never depend on anyone else." Never depend on anyone else, while depositing my $4,800 every month. That night, driving home to my apartment, I made a decision. If Danny was going to pretend I didn't exist, maybe it was time to show him who I really am. But first, I wanted to see how far his shame would go. The wedding planning revealed everything I needed to know about my son's priorities. Rebecca wanted a destination wedding. Danny wanted something impressive for his business contacts. They settled on the Four Seasons in Silicon Valley. Ballroom rental, $15,000. Catering for 200 guests, $38,000. Flowers, $8,000. Open bar, $12,000. Total budget, $150,000. Danny paid for none of it himself. Rebecca's family covered the venue and catering. I was quietly funding the rest through my monthly payments, though Danny would never admit it. But here's what hurt. I wasn't involved in any planning decisions. No input on the guest list, no opinion on the menu, no discussion about the ceremony. I was treated like an obligation, not a father. Rebecca's family had 90 people invited. Danny had 110. Extended family, college friends, business contacts, startup investors, everyone who mattered in his life. Except he was planning to lie to me about when it was happening. I found out by accident. Danny left his laptop open at my apartment 2 weeks ago. I saw an email thread about vendor confirmations. Everything said October 12th. But Danny had told me October 15th. I didn't say anything immediately. I wanted to see what he'd do. The next week, Danny called me. "Hey Dad, just confirming you have October 15th marked for the wedding." "That's what you told me," I said. "Great. It starts at 6 p.m. Nothing fancy. Just family and a few friends." A few friends. 200 people. That night I looked at Rebecca's Instagram. She'd posted a story about final wedding preparations, the date clearly visible, October 12th. Danny was planning to have his wedding without me. Then he'd probably call the next day with some excuse about why I missed it. Maybe say the date got moved at the last minute. Pretend it was an accident. But I knew the truth. He didn't want his poor computer repairman father embarrassing him in front of Silicon Valley society. The irony was devastating. Every month for 32 years, I'd been supporting his dreams, his education, his living expenses, his business, his lifestyle. Over $1.5 million in total support. And he was so ashamed of me that he'd rather have me miss his wedding than risk being associated with someone beneath his status. I started calculating what this disrespect was actually costing him. The monthly $4,800 payments would continue indefinitely if nothing changed. Over the next 20 years, that's another $1.15 million. Plus, I'd been planning a wedding gift of $1 million cash. Money I'd earned through decades of work he knew nothing about. If I stayed silent about his deception, I'd be enabling his contempt for the rest of our lives. He'd keep taking my money while pretending I didn't exist. But here's what Danny didn't know. Some of the people on his guest list knew exactly who I was. Jennifer Palmer, Intel's CEO, was invited because of Danny's business connections. She's been trying to schedule a meeting with me for 6 months. Sarah Chen, a Forbes reporter who covers Silicon Valley, was coming as Rebecca's family friend. She's been investigating the identity of Microcore Technologies' mysterious founder for 2 years. Both of them would recognize me immediately. Danny was about to learn that his biggest shame was actually his greatest asset, and his wedding reception was about to become the most expensive lesson in respect he'd ever receive. The question wasn't whether I'd attend his wedding. The question was how I'd handle the moment when 200 of Silicon Valley's most influential people discovered who the poor computer repairman really was. I had 3 days to decide. I decided to test Danny one more time before making my final decision. 3 days before the wedding, I called him. "Danny, I want to make sure I have everything right for Saturday." "Saturday?" His voice got tight. "Dad, the wedding is Sunday." "October 15th is Sunday." "Right, Sunday the 15th. I paused. Let the silence hang there. "So the wedding is definitely Sunday, October 15th? "Yes, Dad. 6 p.m. at the Four Seasons. I've told you this 3 times. "And nothing's changed?" "Nothing's changed. Why would anything change?" "Just checking. These things sometimes get moved around." "Well, this one isn't moving. Sunday the 15th. Don't forget." Don't forget. The irony was incredible. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment for an hour. 32 years of supporting this kid, and he was lying straight to my face about the most important day of his life. I opened my laptop and started researching the wedding venue. The Four Seasons Silicon Valley books events months in advance. Their ballroom rental agreements are strict about timing and deposits. I called the hotel. "Four Seasons, this is Maria." "Hi, I'm Billy Anderson. My son Danny Anderson has an event booked with you this weekend. I wanted to confirm some details." Let me check. Yes, the Anderson-Walsh wedding is Saturday, October 12th, 6 p.m. ceremony, 7 p.m. reception. Is there something you need to change? No changes, just confirming Saturday, October 12th. Exactly what I suspected. That afternoon, I drove to Danny's office in Palo Alto. TechFlow Solutions occupied half a floor in a glass building near Stanford. Startup modern, open workspace, standing desks, expensive coffee machines. Danny was in a conference room with 3 employees, planning something on a whiteboard. I knocked on the glass door. Dad, what are you doing here? Wanted to stop by and see how you're doing before the big day. I'm pretty busy. Wedding planning, you know how it is. I'm sure. Getting excited about Sunday? Yeah, should be great. One of his employees, a young woman with purple hair, looked confused. I thought you said the wedding was tomorrow? Danny's face flushed. Tomorrow is the rehearsal. Wedding's Sunday. Oh, she said. I could have sworn you mentioned taking Saturday off for the actual wedding. Just the rehearsal, Danny said quickly. Dad, maybe we could talk later? I've got a lot to wrap up. Of course, don't let me interrupt. I left, but not before hearing the purple-haired employee whisper to someone else. I'm definitely confused about his wedding date. That evening, Rebecca posted another Instagram story. A photo of her dress hanging in her childhood bedroom. Caption, Tomorrow is the day. Can't wait to marry my best friend. October 12 the wedding day. I took a screenshot. Then I called Danny. Hey, Dad. Hi, son. Quick question about tomorrow. Tomorrow? Saturday. Do you need help with anything for the rehearsal? Long pause. The rehearsal is private, just immediate family and the wedding party. Am I not immediate family? You are, but it's really just going to be very small, like 5 people. I understand. The real celebration is Sunday. That's the important day. The wedding day. Exactly. The wedding day. I hung up and stared at my phone for 10 minutes. My son was going to get married tomorrow. In less than 24 hours, he'd be standing in front of 200 people, making vows to the woman he loved, starting the most important chapter of his life. And he was willing to do it without his father present rather than risk being embarrassed by me. I opened my banking app and looked at the recurring transfer I'd set up 32 years ago. Every month, $4,800 from my account to his. Automatic, reliable, never questioned. I thought about all the times he'd called me for advice, all the family dinners where we'd talked about his dreams, all the moments when he seemed like he actually cared about having me in his life. But when it mattered most, when he had to choose between including me and maintaining his image, he chose his image. I made my decision that night. I was going to attend my son's wedding, not because he invited me, but because I had every right to be there. And if he was determined to be ashamed of his father, he was about to learn exactly who his father really was. Saturday morning, I got ready for a wedding I wasn't supposed to know about. I put on my best suit, navy blue, tailored, expensive. I'd bought it 5 years ago, but rarely had occasion to wear it. Most people in my neighborhood had only seen me in work clothes or casual shirts. While I was getting dressed, my phone rang. Billy, this is Jennifer Palmer from Intel. I'd been expecting this call for weeks. Hello, Jennifer. I hope you don't mind me calling on a Saturday. I know you value your privacy, but I wanted to confirm our meeting next week. Which meeting? The partnership discussion. My team is excited about the new chip architecture specifications you sent over. Of course. Tuesday at 2 p.m.? Perfect. And Billy, I hope you'll consider our proposal seriously. Intel would be honored to work more closely with Microcore. After she hung up, I sat on my bed for a moment. Jennifer Palmer, CEO of Intel, one of the most powerful people in Silicon Valley. And she'd be at Danny's wedding tonight, probably wondering why she'd never been introduced to the groom's father. An hour later, another call. Mr. Anderson? This is David from Wells Fargo Private Banking. What can I do for you, David? I wanted to follow up on the corporate account management we discussed. The board requested some additional documentation for the quarterly review. Send it to my office Monday. I'll have my assistant handle it. Will do. And congratulations on the Forbes recognition, by the way. About time someone acknowledged Microcore's impact on the industry. Forbes recognition. Danny had no idea his father had been featured in any magazine, let alone Forbes. After David hung up, I walked to my closet and pulled out a file folder I kept in the back. Inside were documents most people would never see. Microcore Technologies Incorporation papers from 1992. My name as founder and CEO. Partnership agreements with Intel, AMD, and Google. My signature on contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. stock certificates showing my ownership of 73% of a company worth $3.20 billion, and a cashier's check for $1 million made out to Daniel Anderson. His wedding gift. Money I'd earned over 3 decades of building something I'd never told him about. I put the file in my jacket pocket. At 4 p.m., I drove to the Four Seasons. The parking lot was already filling up with luxury cars. Teslas, BMWs, a few Porsches. Silicon Valley success on display. I recognized some faces from tech magazines and conferences, venture capitalists, startup founders, executives from major companies, the kind of people Danny desperately wanted to impress. As I walked toward the hotel entrance, I wondered how many of them would recognize me. How many knew that the anonymous founder of Microcore Technologies was about to walk into his son's wedding uninvited. Tonight was going to change everything. The Four Seasons ballroom was exactly as expensive as it looked. Crystal chandeliers, gold accents, white linens everywhere. Danny and Rebecca had spared no expense for their 200 guests. I arrived during cocktail hour. The ceremony had just finished. People were mingling, drinking champagne, congratulating the couple. I stayed near the back, watching. Danny looked happy in his tuxedo, shaking hands with investors and tech executives. Rebecca was radiant in her wedding dress, posing for photos with her family. Nobody noticed me at first. I was just another guest in a good suit. But then Danny saw me. From across the room our eyes met. His face went completely white. He said something to Rebecca and walked quickly toward me. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "Congratulating my son on his wedding day." "How did you—" "I told you it was tomorrow." "Did you?" People were starting to look at us. Danny grabbed my arm and tried to steer me toward a corner. "We need to talk privately." "This is your wedding reception, Danny. Let's celebrate. You can't be here right now." "Why not?" He glanced around nervously. Several guests were watching us with curiosity. Because you're not dressed appropriately." I looked down at my tailored navy suit, silk tie, Italian leather shoes. "Not dressed appropriately? You know what I mean." Before I could respond, Jennifer Palmer appeared beside us. "Excuse me," she said with a warm smile. "I don't believe we've been introduced." Danny's panic was visible now. "Oh, this is my father." "Your father?" Jennifer extended her hand to me. "I'm Jennifer Palmer, CEO of Intel. I've been looking forward to meeting you." "Looking forward to meeting me?" Danny asked. "Well, yes," Jennifer said, still looking at me. "Your father and I have been trying to coordinate schedules for months." Danny stared at her, then at me. "Coordinate schedules?" "For our partnership meetings," Jennifer continued. "Microcore and Intel have been discussing some exciting collaborations." "Microcore?" Danny's voice was barely a whisper. Jennifer looked confused. "Danny, you do know what your father does, don't you?" Before I could answer, a woman with a press badge approached us. Sarah Chen from Forbes. "Excuse me," Sarah said. "Aren't you— Oh my God, you're him, aren't you?" "Who?" Danny asked. "The Ghost founder," Sarah said, pulling out her phone. "I've been trying to track you down for 2 years." A crowd was starting to form around us. Silicon Valley executives, venture capitalists, tech reporters, all staring at me with recognition. "Danny," Jennifer said slowly, "your father is Billy Anderson, founder and CEO of Microcore Technologies." "That's impossible," Danny said. "My father fixes computers." "He built the company that makes the chips in half the devices in this room," Sarah Chen said. "Microcore is worth $3.2 billion. The crowd was getting larger, whispers spreading through the reception. "Wait," said a man I recognized as a venture capitalist. "Billy Anderson is your father? The Billy Anderson?" Danny looked like he was going to be sick. "I don't understand." Rebecca appeared at his side. "What's happening? Everyone's staring at us." "Rebecca," Jennifer Palmer said, "congratulations on marrying into one of Silicon Valley's most successful families." "Most successful families?" Sarah Chen was taking photos now. "This is incredible. The mysterious founder of Microcore at a Silicon Valley wedding. Can I get a quote?" "No quotes," I said quietly. But the damage was done. Everyone was looking at me with new respect, and at Danny with confusion. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Rebecca whispered to Danny. "Because I didn't know," Danny said. "You didn't know your own father built a billion-dollar company?" The conversation was spreading through the reception now. I could hear fragments from different groups. "That's Billy Anderson, founder of Microcore. Worth over $3 billion. His son had no idea." Danny pulled me aside desperately. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" "You never asked. I never asked because you said you fixed computers. I do fix computers, among other things. Other things? Dad, you own a company worth billions of dollars. I built a company worth billions of dollars. There's a difference. Rebecca joined us, her face flushed with embarrassment. Mr. Anderson, I had no idea. Danny never mentioned. Danny's been ashamed of me for years, I said calmly. He didn't want anyone here to know about his background. That's not true, Danny said quickly. Isn't it? You told me this wedding was tomorrow, so I wouldn't come. The entire reception was watching us now. 200 of Silicon Valley's most influential people witnessing this family drama unfold. Jennifer Palmer approached us again. Billy, I hope this family moment resolves well, but I do want to mention that several board members are here tonight. They'd love to meet with you about our Q1 projections. Board members are here? Danny asked weakly. Of course, Jennifer said. Your father's company partnerships affect the entire industry. Danny sat down heavily in the nearest chair. The weight of 32 years of misunderstanding was crushing him, and we were just getting started. The crowd around us kept growing. Word was spreading through the reception that Microcore's mysterious founder was at the wedding. Sarah Chen from Forbes was persistent. Mr. Anderson, our readers have been fascinated by your story, the anonymous tech mogul who's never given an interview. And I'm not giving one now, I said. Just a few questions. How does it feel to finally be public about your identity? Danny stood up from his chair. Public about what identity? Dad, what is she talking about? Sarah pulled out her phone and showed him a Forbes article from last month. The headline read, Silicon Valley's Ghost Founder, the $3. $2 billion mystery man of Microcore Technologies. Below the headline was a photo of me from an industry conference in 2019. Danny stared at the screen. This is you? Page 47 of the September issue, Sarah said. We've been investigating Microcore's ownership structure for years. Your father controls 73% of the company but has never made a public statement. 73%? Rebecca whispered. Jennifer Palmer joined the conversation again. Danny, your father revolutionized chip architecture in the 1990s. Every smartphone, every laptop, every smart TV uses some version of Microcore's technology. More people were gathering around us. I recognized several faces from tech magazines and business journals. Billy Anderson, said a man in an expensive suit. Richard Walsh from Goldman Sachs. We've been handling Microcore's investment portfolio for 15 years. Investment portfolio? Danny asked. Currently valued at approximately $1.80 billion in diversified assets, Richard continued. Your father is one of our most significant private clients. Danny looked like he was having trouble breathing. A woman approached from the other side. Mr. Anderson, I'm Lisa Park from the Wall Street Journal. We'd love to feature your story. No interviews, I repeated. But the revelations kept coming. Every person who recognized me added another piece of information Danny had never heard. Microcore's partnership with Google last year was incredible, said someone from the tech press. The Intel collaboration alone is worth $850 million annually, added another voice. Your father basically invented the processing architecture that powers artificial intelligence, Jennifer Palmer explained to Danny. Rebecca was staring at me with a completely different expression now. Mr. Anderson, I owe you an apology. I had no idea about your accomplishments. What accomplishments? Danny said desperately. Yesterday he was fixing Mrs. Chen's printer. I did fix Mrs. Chen's printer, I said, and I run a technology company. Both can be true. Sarah Chen was taking notes furiously. This is the story of the year. The tech mogul hiding in plain sight. Mr. Anderson, called a voice from across the room. It was Rebecca's father, approaching with obvious respect. I understand congratulations are in order, not just for the wedding, but for Microcore's recent expansion into quantum computing. Quantum computing? Danny's voice cracked. The patents your father filed last month could revolutionize the entire industry, Rebecca's father continued. Our hotel group's technology infrastructure relies heavily on Microcore's innovations. The crowd was listening to every word now. This wasn't just a family revelation anymore. It was Silicon Valley history being written in real time. Jennifer Palmer addressed the gathering. For those who don't know, Billy Anderson founded Microcore in 1992 with a $50,000 loan. Today, it's one of the most valuable private tech companies in the world. Private company, someone whispered. That means no stock options, no public investors. He owns it all. Not quite all, I corrected. I own 73%. The remaining 27% is held by early employees and strategic partners. Still, Richard Walsh from Goldman Sachs added, that makes your personal stake worth approximately $2.30 billion. The number hung in the air, $2.3 billion. Danny sat back down, hard. Rebecca was looking back and forth between me and Danny like she was seeing both of us for the first time. Danny, she said quietly, how did you not know any of this? Because I never told him, I said, and he never asked the right questions. What do you mean, the right questions? He knew I sent him $4,800 every month. For 32 years. He never asked where that money came from. The crowd went quiet. Everyone was doing the math. 32 years times $4,800 per month, Sarah Chen said, calculating on her phone. That's over $1.5 million in support. $1,536,000, I confirmed. Danny's face was completely white now. You've been supporting him financially this whole time? Rebecca asked. College tuition, graduate school, living expenses, business startup costs, mortgage down payment, car purchases, I listed. Yes, Jennifer Palmer looked impressed. You funded your son's entire life while building a billion-dollar company in secret. It wasn't secret from everyone, I said, just from him. Why? Rebecca asked. Why keep it hidden? I looked at Danny, who was staring at his hands. Because my son was ashamed of me. He introduced me as retired at business events. He told people I helped with computers. He excluded me from important moments in his life because he thought I wasn't successful enough to be associated with him. The silence was deafening. 200 wedding guests listening to a father confront his son's shame. So I let him think what he wanted to think, I continued, while I quietly paid for the life he was so proud of building on his own. Sarah Chen was writing frantically. This wasn't just a text story anymore. It was a human story about family, success, and the price of pride. Danny, Jennifer Palmer said gently, your startup, TechFlow Solutions, how did you fund it? Personal savings and small business loans, Danny whispered. Personal savings that came from your father's monthly support? She asked. Danny couldn't answer. The room was completely silent except for the soft sound of Sarah Chen typing notes on her phone. Then Rebecca's father stepped forward. Mr. Anderson. What happens now? That was the question everyone wanted answered. What does a billionaire father do when his son has spent years being ashamed of him? I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. Well, I said, I was planning to give Danny a wedding gift tonight. I held up the envelope for everyone to see. Clean white paper, Wells Fargo watermark, official seals. This is a cashier's check for $1 million, I announced. Danny's wedding gift. The crowd stared. You could have heard a pin drop. Danny looked up from his chair. Dad, 32 years of supporting your dreams, I continued. College, graduate school, your startup, your house, your car, everything you thought you built yourself. I opened the envelope and pulled out the check, made out to Daniel Anderson for exactly $1 million. This was going to be your start in real wealth, I said, your chance to move beyond the monthly support and build something significant. Rebecca was staring at the check with wide eyes. $1 million. More money than most people see in their lifetime. But there's a problem, Danny. I held the check higher so everyone in the room could see it. You lied to me about your wedding date because you were ashamed to have me here. Dad, please. You told me October 15th. Your wedding was today, October 12th. You deliberately gave me the wrong date so I'd miss your wedding. The crowd was perfectly silent. Sarah Chen was recording every word. In front of everyone here tonight, you introduced me as someone who just fixes computers. You've spent years minimizing my contribution to your life. I walked closer to Danny, still holding the check. So I want you to understand something very clearly. This money was earned by the man you're ashamed of. Every dollar came from the company you never knew I built. Every cent represents the success you thought I didn't have. Danny started to stand up. Dad, I had no idea. You had no idea because you never asked. You took $4,800 every month for 32 years and never once questioned where it came from. I held the check directly in front of him. You want to be self-made? You want to succeed without depending on anyone else? Here's your chance. Then I tore the check in half. The sound echoed through the silent ballroom. 2 pieces of paper worth $1 million fluttered to the floor. Gasps from the crowd. Rebecca covered her mouth in shock. But I wasn't finished. I tore each half in half again. 4 pieces now. Then again. 8 pieces. I let them fall to the floor in front of 200 witnesses. Effective immediately, I said calmly. The monthly support ends. No more $4,800 transfers. You're 32 years old, Danny. Time to see what you can build without your father's help. Danny stared at the pieces of paper at his feet. $1 million destroyed in front of everyone he'd wanted to impress. Dad, wait. We can talk about this. We had 32 years to talk about this. You chose not to. Jennifer Palmer stepped forward. Billy, are you sure about this decision? Completely sure. Richard Walsh from Goldman Sachs looked uncomfortable. That was a significant financial commitment. It was. Now it's not. I turned to address the entire crowd. Danny wanted a wedding without his father because he thought I'd embarrass him. Instead, he's learned that his father built the fortune that funded his entire life. Sarah Chen was taking photos of the torn check on the floor. For 32 years, I supported my son's dreams in silence. I paid for his education, his living expenses, his business, his house, his car, everything he thought he'd earned on his own. I looked at Danny, who was still staring at the destroyed check. But respect isn't inherited, Danny. It's earned. And until you learn to respect the people who sacrifice for you, you don't deserve their sacrifice. Rebecca knelt down and picked up one of the pieces of the check. This was really for $1 million? It was. And you just destroyed it? I destroyed a gift for someone who doesn't value the giver. Danny finally looked up at me. Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. There's a difference. I turned back to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the rest of the reception. Danny and Rebecca, congratulations on your marriage. I hope you build something beautiful together. I started walking toward the exit. Dad, Danny called after me, don't leave like this. I stopped and turned back. You chose to have this wedding without me, Danny. Now you can have the rest of your life the same way. As I walked out of the Four Seasons ballroom, I could hear the whispers starting behind me. 200 witnesses to the most expensive lesson in gratitude Silicon Valley had ever seen. The story went viral within hours. Sarah Chen's Forbes article published Sunday morning. Silicon Valley wedding shocker. Tech mogul destroys $1 million gift after son's deception. By Monday, it was trending on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Reddit. Tech blogs picked it up. Business journals wrote follow-up pieces. Someone had recorded video on their phone, and clips were circulating on TikTok. The headlines kept getting bigger. Billionaire father tears up $1 million wedding gift. Microcore founder reveals son's 32-year secret support, the wedding that exposed Silicon Valley's biggest family drama. Danny's phone started ringing Sunday night. Investors asking questions about his startup funding. Employees wondering about the company's financial stability. Clients concerned about business continuity. By Tuesday, 3 of his major clients had pulled their contracts. We need to reassess our vendor relationships, one CEO told him over the phone. Questions about your company's funding sources create liability concerns for us. Danny's startup, TechFlow Solutions, had been operating on thin margins. The monthly $4,800 from me had been covering office rent, employee salaries, and operational expenses. Without it, the company had maybe 6 weeks of runway left. His mortgage payment was due in 2 weeks, $8,400 for the Palo Alto house. His Tesla lease, $1,200 monthly. Credit card minimum payments, $900. Health insurance, $650. The math was brutal without my support. Wednesday morning, Danny's largest investor called an emergency meeting. Daniel, we need to discuss some concerns, said Patricia Morrison from Venture Partners. The Forbes article raised questions about your company's financial foundation. My personal family situation doesn't affect the business, Danny protested. When your business was funded by undisclosed family money, it absolutely affects our due diligence. We need complete transparency about your funding sources. My father never invested in the company directly, but he funded your living expenses, which allowed you to work without salary for 2 years. That's material support we weren't aware of. Patricia slid a document across the table. We're invoking the disclosure clause in our investment agreement. Either provide complete financial records showing all support sources, or we'll consider withdrawing our funding. Danny stared at the papers. Without Venture Partners' $800,000 investment, TechFlow Solutions would collapse immediately. That afternoon, Rebecca's parents called a family meeting. Rebecca, we need to discuss the financial implications of this situation, her father said. What do you mean? Your husband's startup is failing. His personal expenses exceed his income by $6,000 monthly. His father was subsidizing everything, and that support is gone. Danny will figure it out. Will he? Because our family attorney suggests a prenuptial agreement modification to protect your interests. Rebecca looked shocked. We've been married for 5 days. And your husband just lost access to $1.5 million in annual family support. This affects your financial future too. Meanwhile, the tech community was buzzing with opinions. LinkedIn posts from industry leaders. Billy Anderson handled this perfectly. Respect must be earned, not taken for granted. Tough love from a father who built an empire. Danny learned an expensive lesson about gratitude. This is what happens when success goes to your head. Family comes first, always. But there were critics, too. Destroying $1 million in public was cruel and unnecessary. Billy Anderson embarrassed his son in front of 200 people. That's not parenting, that's revenge. The story divided Silicon Valley. Some saw me as a principled father teaching accountability. Others viewed me as a vindictive billionaire humiliating his son. Danny's employees started looking for other jobs. Tech recruiters were calling them with opportunities at more stable companies. Is it true the company was funded by your dad's secret money? Asked his lead developer, Marcus. It's complicated, Danny said. Because if we're not getting paid next month, I need to know now. By Thursday, Danny had lost 2 key employees. His office lease was coming up for renewal, and the landlord wanted 3 months advance payment. $45,000 he didn't have. Rebecca was getting pressure from her family to distance herself from the financial chaos. Maybe you should move back home temporarily, her mother suggested, until Danny gets back on his feet. I'm not abandoning my husband. You're not abandoning him. You're protecting yourself from his poor financial planning. Friday morning, Danny called me. Dad, we need to talk. Do we? I know you're angry, but this is affecting Rebecca too. She didn't do anything wrong. You're right. Rebecca didn't lie to me about your wedding date. Can we meet somewhere just to talk? I thought about it for a moment. Danny, for 32 years you took my money without asking where it came from. You built a lifestyle based on my support while being ashamed of me in public. I understand that now. Do you? Because calling me after your startup is failing and your investors are asking questions suggests you still don't understand. What do you mean? You're calling because you need something, not because you want to repair our relationship. Silence on the phone. If you want to talk, Danny, it can't be about money. It has to be about respect. I do respect you. You respected my money. There's a difference. That weekend, more consequences emerged. The wedding video had been posted online by several guests. Comments ranged from supportive to brutal. Danny got what he deserved. Never bite the hand that feeds you. This dad is savage. Tore up $1 million like it was toilet paper. Feel bad for the wife. She married into a mess. Best father lesson ever taught. Respect your parents. TechCrunch published an analysis of Microcore Technology's impact on the industry. They estimated that my company's innovations had contributed to over $50 billion in global technology advancement. Billy Anderson may be Silicon Valley's most influential figure that nobody talks about, the article concluded. His son's wedding revelation pulled back the curtain on decades of quiet innovation. By Sunday, exactly 1 week after the wedding, Danny's world had completely changed. His startup was hemorrhaging money and employees. His investors were demanding transparency he couldn't provide. His wife's family was questioning his financial stability. His marriage was under stress from external pressure, and his father was no longer sending $4,800 every month to keep it all afloat. The wedding reception that was supposed to celebrate his success had become the event that exposed how fragile that success really was. 3 weeks after the wedding, Danny showed up at my apartment. I opened the door to find him standing there in jeans and a wrinkled shirt. No Tesla in the driveway. He'd taken the bus. Hi, Dad. Danny. Can I come in? I stepped aside and let him enter. He sat on my old couch, the same one he'd been embarrassed by when Rebecca visited months ago. Now he looked at it differently. My company's shutting down, he said quietly. I heard Rebecca's staying with her parents temporarily. I didn't respond. Dad, I know what I did was wrong. What part? All of it. Lying about the wedding date, being ashamed of you, taking your money without asking questions. He looked around my small apartment. How long have you been living like this while running a billion-dollar company? 15 years? Why? Because I don't need much space. And because keeping things simple helped me focus on what mattered. Which was building something meaningful and supporting my son's dreams. Danny's voice cracked. I messed up everything, didn't I? I sat down across from him. Danny, you made choices based on what you thought success looked like. Fast cars, expensive houses, impressive offices. You thought those things defined worth. And they don't? They define comfort. Worth comes from how you treat people who sacrifice for you. He nodded slowly. I've been thinking about what you said at the wedding, about respect being earned. And I never earned your respect. I just took your support and assumed it would always be there. This was the conversation we should have had years ago. The monthly money, Danny said. It really was $1.5 million over 32 years? $1,536,000. And I never once asked where it came from. Not once. Because I didn't want to know if you were struggling to send it. I looked at him carefully. Is that really why? Danny was quiet for a long moment. No, he finally said. I didn't ask because I was afraid you were doing something embarrassing to earn it. Like working multiple jobs or... I don't know. I wanted to believe my success was legitimate without examining how it was funded. There it was, the truth we'd both been avoiding. So what happens now? He asked. That depends on what you want to happen. I want my father back. Your father was always here, Danny. You just didn't want him around. I want to understand your business. I want to know about Microcore and what you built. Why? Because I spent 32 years being ashamed of something I didn't understand. Maybe if I understood it, I could be proud instead. I studied his face. He looked different than he had at the wedding. Humbler, more honest. Understanding my business doesn't fix what happened between us, I said. I know, but maybe it's a start. I walked to my closet and pulled out the file folder I'd shown him at the wedding. Microcore Technologies, I said, opening it on the coffee table. Founded 1992, initial investment, $50,000 loan against this apartment. Danny looked at the incorporation papers with new eyes. You risked your home to start the company? I believed in the technology. And now it's worth $3.2 billion. Now it employs 2,400 people and powers technology that billions of people use every day. Danny picked up one of the patent documents. Quantum processing architecture? What does this mean? It means the computer in your pocket works because of innovations we developed 15 years ago. For the next hour, I explained my company to my son, not to impress him, but to help him understand what quiet work could accomplish. Dad, he said finally, I want to ask you something and I want you to be honest. Okay, if I hadn't lied about the wedding, would you still have given me the $1 million? Yes. Even though I'd been disrespectful for years. Danny, that gift wasn't about rewarding your behavior. It was about investing in your future. Then why destroy it? Because you needed to learn that respect and support aren't the same thing. I could support you financially while you disrespected me personally. But I chose not to anymore. Danny nodded slowly. What would it take, he asked, for you to consider supporting me again? It's not about the money, Danny. Then what is it about? It's about whether you see me as your father or as your funding source. He sat back on the couch, thinking. Can I start over? He asked. With what? With being your son. I looked at this man I'd raised for 32 years, brilliant, ambitious, flawed, and finally honest. That depends, I said. Are you ready to be proud of having Billy Anderson as your father? I'm ready to learn how. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a beginning. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been underestimated because of how you look or what job you have? Sometimes the people who seem the most ordinary are carrying the most extraordinary stories.